Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. Holly and the Cursed Catacombs. Holly Arnold stood at the entrance of the catacombs beneath the Isle of Wight, the dim light of her flashlight flickering against the moss-covered stone walls. She glanced at her companions, a group of urban explorers she had met online. Jason, a seasoned explorer with a knack for finding hidden entrances. Lisa, a photographer with an eye for the macabre. And Mark, a history buff who had done extensive research on the catacombs. The air was thick with a musty odor, a mix of damp earth and decay. "Ready?" Jason asked, his voice echoing in a narrow passage. "Let's do this," Holly replied, trying to mask her nervousness with a smile. The group descended into the darkness, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The catacombs were a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, some dating back to Roman times. Mark had explained that these tunnels were used for various purposes over the centuries, from burial sites to hideouts during wars. But recently there had been rumors of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings, drawing the attention of thrill-seekers like themselves. As they ventured deeper, the wall seemed to close in, and the air grew colder. Holly's flashlight flickered again, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. They passed by alcoves filled with crumbling bones and ancient relics, remnants of those long forgotten. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing her camera at a set of symbols etched into the stone. "These markings are unlike anything I've seen before." Mark examined the symbols, his brow furrowing. They appeared to be some sort of protective wards, possibly meant to keep something in or out. A shiver ran down Holly's spine. "Let's keep moving," she urged. The sooner they completed their exploration, the sooner they could leave this unsettling place. They turned a corner and entered a vast chamber, the ceiling disappearing into darkness. In the center stood a large stone sarcophagus, its lid partially ajar. Jason approached it, curiosity overcoming caution. "Check this out," he said, shining his flashlight inside. Holly peered over his shoulder and gasped. The skeleton inside was adorned with tattered robes and a rusted crown. Beside it lay a scroll, its parchment yellowed with age. Mark carefully unrolled the scroll, his eyes scanning the ancient text. "This is a warning," he said, his voice trembling. "It speaks of a curse placed upon anyone who disturbs these catacombs. The spirits of the dead will rise to protect the resting place." As if on cue, a cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing their flashlights. Panic set in as they fumbled to relight them. When the lights finally flickered back on, they were no longer alone. Ghostly figures emerged from the shadows, their hollow eyes staring with an intensity that pierced through Holly's soul. The spirits moved closer, their mournful wails filling the air. "We need to get out of here," Holly shouted, grabbing Jason's arm. They retraced their steps, the spirits in relentless pursuit. The tunnels seemed to twist and change, leading them deeper into the catacombs. Lisa screamed as a spectral hand reached for her, its touch cold and deathly. "Help me," she cried, but the spirits were too strong. One by one, her friends were dragged into the darkness, their screams echoing through the tunnels. Holly ran, her heart pounding in her chest. She stumbled upon a hidden passage and slipped inside, the walls closing around her. The spirits' wails grew distant, but she knew they were still searching for her. She found herself in a small chamber, the air thick with the scent of incense. In the center was an altar adorned with candles and ancient relics. Holly approached it, her eyes drawn to a book bound in leather. She opened it, her fingers trembling as she read the incantations within. The ground shook and the air crackled with energy as the spirits surrounded her. With a deep breath, Holly began to chant the incantations, her voice growing stronger with each word. The spirits recoiled, their forms flickering like candle flames in a storm. As she finished the final words, the spirits let out a collective wail and vanished, leaving Holly alone in the darkness. The ground settled and the air grew still. She collapsed to the floor, her body trembling with exhaustion. Hours later, she emerged from the catacombs, the first light of dawn breaking on the horizon. She looked back at the entrance, the weight of what she had experienced pressing down on her. The curse of the catacombs was real, and she was the only one who had survived. Holly knew she could never forget the faces of her friends or the horrors they had encountered. The catacombs had taken them, but she had escaped. As she walked away, she vowed never to return, leaving the cursed catacombs to the restless dead who called it home. Days turned into weeks, but Holly couldn't shake the haunting memories of the catacombs. The faces of her lost friends Jason, Lisa, and Mark plagued her dreams. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw their terrified expressions and heard their desperate screams. She had survived, but the guilt of leaving them behind gnawed at her. Desperate for closure, Holly delved into research about the catacombs. She visited local libraries, scoured ancient texts, and talked to historians and locals who knew of the place's dark history. The more she learned, the more she realized how deep the curse ran. The catacombs were built over an ancient burial ground, and disturbing them had awakened a malevolent force. One evening, while poring over an old manuscript in the dim light of her apartment, Holly found a passage that caught her attention. It spoke of a ritual, a way to appease the spirits and lift the curse. The ritual required a specific set of items: a silver mirror, a lock of hair from each deceased person, and an artifact from the catacombs. Holly knew what she had to do. She had to go back. The thought of returning filled her with dread, but she couldn't live with the guilt any longer. She gathered the required items, including a silver mirror she had inherited from her grandmother, and set out for the catacombs once more. The entrance loomed before her, as foreboding as ever. Taking a deep breath, Holly stepped into the darkness, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. The catacombs seemed to recognize her, the walls whispering ancient secrets as she passed. She retraced her steps to the chamber with the altar, where she had first found the Book of Incantations. As she set up the ritual, Holly felt a presence watching her. She turned and saw the ghostly forms of her friends, their faces twisted in sorrow and anger. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she forced herself to focus. She placed the silver mirror on the altar and carefully laid a lock of hair from each friend beside it. The final piece was the artifact she had taken from the catacombs, a small, intricately carved stone she had found near the sarcophagus. With everything in place, Holly began the ritual, reciting the ancient incantations from memory. The air grew thick with energy, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. The spirits of her friends surrounded her, their eyes pleading for release. As Holly spoke the final words, a blinding light filled the chamber. The spirits screamed, their forms dissolving into the light. The ground shook violently, and the walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Holly's voice rose above the chaos, her words echoing through the catacombs. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light vanished. The ground steadied, and the air grew still. Holly fell to her knees, exhausted but hopeful. The spirits were gone, and the catacombs felt different, calmer, as if a great weight had been lifted. She made her way back to the surface, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. Holly looked back at the entrance one last time. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that her friends were finally at rest. The curse had been lifted, and the catacombs could now remain undisturbed. Holly returned to her life, but she was forever changed by her experiences. She dedicated herself to ensuring that the catacombs remained untouched, sharing her story with those who would listen. The memories of her friends still haunted her, but she found solace in knowing she had freed their spirits. Years later, the catacombs became a protected site, and urban explorers were banned from entering. Holly's story became a local legend, a warning to those who would dare to disturb the resting place of the dead. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, her bravery ensuring that the catacombs would never again be a place of horror. But sometimes, late at night, Holly would still hear the whispers of the catacombs in her dreams, a reminder of the restless dead and the price of disturbing their slumber. And in those moments she would remember her friends and the sacrifice they had made, vowing never to forget the lessons she had learned in the cursed catacombs of the Isle of Wight. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.